Emily Chang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, Amazon's delivery disruption plan, how the e-commerce king is experimenting with a new service that could affect some major partners. We'll look into the potential impacts on FedEx and UPS and the timeline to a national expansion. Plus, Netflix's price hike. The streaming giant raises the price of its most popular service plan by 10% to finance its push to own content. We'll analyze the new plan and what it means for its ambitious TV and movie budgets. And the Pac-12 is about to get some more airtime in China. We'll break down why Alibaba made a deal to stream U.S. college sports. But first, to our lead. Amazon is one step closer to weaning itself off delivery services like UPS and FedEx. The e-commerce giant is experimenting with a new delivery service intended to make more products available for free two-day delivery. Amazon will oversee pickup of packages from warehouses of third-party merchants and their delivery to customers' homes, something that UPS and FedEx now often handle. Shares of UPS dipped by as much as 2.1% today after the announcement. FedEx was down as much as 1.6%, but recovered slightly. Amazon began using the service 2 years ago in India and began using it on the west coast of the U.S. this year on a trial basis, and a broader rollout is planned for 2018. Joining me now to discuss, Bloomberg's Spencer Soper in Seattle, who broke this story, and our editor-at-large, Corey Johnson, who is in New York. Spencer, I will start with you. What do we know about how this will work and how it's different from the way Amazon works right now?
Well, the biggest shift here is Amazon has traditionally built this vast network of warehouses and encouraged merchants to send their inventory into that network. So Amazon would centralize all of that inventory in its own delivery system and then send it to customers from there. And what they're experimenting with now is, rather than bringing the inventory in, they want to actually go to the facilities of their merchant partners and handle delivery directly from those facilities. So it's kind of bypassing that step and putting Amazon's logistics efforts outside and beyond its own delivery system.
Corey, what does this mean, do we know, for the bottom line? I mean, at what cost will this come to Amazon?
Well, it might be quite the opposite. There's some speculation that by taking a union workforce and stripping those people of the potential for this work and really just going with a non-union workforce, that they might save as much as 30% or more on their shipping costs. Ravi Shankar at Morgan Stanley has done a lot of work on this, and what he's suggesting is that this will go from a massive loss center, if you will, to a potential profit center. If you look at the losses that Amazon has racked up over the last few years for shipping, they are substantial. Now, as Amazon's business has grown, those losses have grown. In the most recent year, they lost $7.2 billion in just 12 months in shipping. That's a net loss. It's not the cost of the shipping. That's the cost of the shipping after getting paid for the shipping. That's a net loss. But even more disconcerting, as a percentage of revenues, that number got a little worse for Amazon in 2016, about 5%, a little more than 5% of sales. So on a percentage basis, you know, that's one of the things you look at, is not just how much are they losing, but how much of their sales are they giving up in terms of shipping costs. So if that number were to even just be break even, let alone profitable, it really changes the income statement for Amazon. So they can do what they always do, either lower prices some more or start to suddenly have a little bit better looking business and a profitable business, but greatly at the expense of UPS, which probably has 5 to 7% of its revenues coming from Amazon.com, and at FedEx, which has about 3% of its revenues coming from Amazon.com.
UPS ended the day slightly down, FedEx slightly up. Spencer, what do we know? I mean, we know that FedEx and UPS will still have some sort of relationship with Amazon, but down the line, could that become no relationship with Amazon?
That's always the speculation, is spinning this way into the future, and knowing that Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is thinking in terms of decades, not just tomorrow, is how much of this business, you know, right now, today, this holiday shopping season, yes, the partnership that has always existed between Amazon and UPS and FedEx will continue to exist. But as this continues to evolve and Amazon continues to take greater control over the last mile of delivery, how much of that partnership is diminished.
Well, and also, Emily, I mean, think about it this way. Like, if you think about what Amazon did with having these third-party suppliers helped Amazon have more stuff to sell when they didn't have enough. When they launched Amazon Web Services, it helped Amazon have more computing power when they didn't have enough. So this could allow them to have more shipping power when they need it, but have leftover when they won't have enough, but be able to sell that to other companies and other merchants when they don't need it. So it's really about growing their capacity, but charging customers for it, charging wholesalers for it, charging businesses for it when they're not using it.
Spencer, busy holiday shopping season coming up. Obviously, this is a time that Amazon has had difficulties in the past. Do we know what the plans are for this holiday shopping season?
Well, this is another example of how they can try to ease the logjam in their existing warehouse network. So they have this warehouse network. They're expanding it every year. They build more and more facilities every year, but they still create a logjam during peak season, that holiday shopping period when everybody's rushing and more packages have to get through their facilities. So this is almost like a pressure relief valve. If they can use the facilities of other people, of their merchant partners, and not drag that inventory through their own facilities, but bypass those facilities, go directly from their merchant partners' facilities to the customers, it takes pressure off of their facilities, and it could lower costs and end up with a better bottom line.
All right, Spencer Soper, our Bloomberg tech reporter who covers Amazon and broke this story, our editor-at-large, Corey Johnson in New York. Thank you both so much for joining. All right, Russian hackers have allegedly breached the NSA, stealing data on U.S. cyber defenses. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. The report says hackers working for the Kremlin targeted an NSA contractor who removed highly classified material and put it on his home computer. They were able to do so because the contractor used Russian-based Kaspersky Labs antivirus software. The incident occurred in 2015, but wasn't discovered until spring of last year. Both the NSA and the Kremlin have declined to comment. Up next, we continue our coverage of Amazon's efforts to take on FedEx and UPS. We're talking to the CEO of Boxed, a startup that is also aiming to disrupt the delivery game. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays, 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. Before Uber's license in London was revoked last month, its sales were rising in the region. Uber's London revenue rose to £36.9 million, which translates to roughly $49 million in 2016. That is a 59% jump from the previous year. The company continues to operate in London while it seeks an appeal to the stripping of its license to operate there. We just covered Amazon stepping up its logistical operations by testing out a new delivery service. So who can go up against this tech giant? Boxed, a membership-free wholesale retailer just focusing on bulk items, is one company taking aim at Amazon. CEO Che Huang joins us now from New York. And Che, Amazon is the elephant in your room. What does this mean for you?
It's a small room. It's not that big of a room, but yeah.
Okay.
It could fit everyone, though.
What does this change, the fact that they're taking on their, even more of their own delivery services mean for you?
It means we have to move even faster. So I feel like these days, if you do anything online, let alone sell stuff online, you really have to control as much of the value chain as you can. And so that's what we're doing. And so between writing our own warehouse management software to now, as you see on the screen, building our own autonomous guided vehicles within the facilities to make pick and pack even more efficient. These are the things that retailers need to do today in order to truly compete. We sell a different assortment than Amazon. We only sell large items, a ton of B2B items, and we have a really big private brand. But at the same time, though, we still sell food online. And if that's the case, we have to be as efficient as possible.
So we're looking at your in-house robots. These are powered by Tesla batteries. Amazon has robots in their warehouses too. How does what you have differ from what they have?
For us, it allows ultimate efficiency customized for our business. On average, we sell close to 10 items per order. So a lot of the robots that you see in Amazon facilities, they're not able to really handle those orders well. So everything sits on a pallet. And so if you think about it, every single consumer order that we have, if you have 10 robots backed up for every pack table, it just becomes untenable. So these robots, in effect, go along almost like a train and divert off only when they need something on any given pallet. So we've done millions and millions of dollars of automation, and this is our first foray into true automation that's built even the hardware in-house.
So what's the next step here? I know this is just the beginning for you, but do you see full end-to-end automation? I mean, what's next?
Yeah, one day we're going to be so advanced that they can automate the CEO job, and so I won't even have a job. But for now, though, I think it's really seeing how efficient these robots can really be for us, and also to find potentially an even better kind of battery supplier. The battery supply of these robots, we use Tesla batteries right now. They're good, and we're pursuing other potential partnerships for folks that can give us even longer charge cycles for this fleet of carts that we're building.
I'm just imagining what it would be like to interview Boxed robot CEO.
It would be a lot better.
You said earlier, Che, that it's a small room and there's room in there for everyone. But there is a question of whether or not that's true. Some people say that these delivery issues are the only thing that stands between Jeff Bezos and domination, and that Amazon is increasingly, pushing other retailers out of the game. Could that happen for you?
Absolutely, and I think we're not so full of hubris to say, oh man, we have an Amazon-proof business. At the same time, though, when you look at the evolution of retail, there's always been very, very dominant retailers and other folks that have kind of built their own niches, have been successful at concentrating and staying focused on a particular business consumer or business set or consumer set, have become very successful. You look at even in the offline world, Costco versus Walmart. Walmart is a Fortune 1 company. At the same time, though, Costco is not as big as Walmart and has yet built a very strong business in the shadow of Walmart in the offline world. So in the online world, we have to stay focused on limited SKU, large format only, our B2B consumer and our private brand, and I think we'll be all right.
So talk to us a little bit about how fast your business is growing. I mean, give us some confidence that you can take on Amazon.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if we have to truly take on Amazon in order to be successful. Just like, there's a litany of retailers in the offline world that survive even though Walmart is pretty dominant. But with that said, though, from literally my garage about 4 years ago to now, during that stretch, we've grown from our first year, call it like $70,000 in sales, to crossing the 100 million plus threshold last year in trailing revenue. And so to go from that and just a few folks in the garage to where we are today, including the automation that you see, it's been the ride of a lifetime, but I think we're just getting started. So there's so much more revenue and more growth to be had, because when you think about it, we sell snacks, we sell toilet paper, we sell things that all Americans use on a daily basis. And when you look at the history of retail, online or offline, there's never been a single retailer that captures over 90% share of food or everyday consumables.
All right, Che Huang, CEO of Boxed. We'll hope to have you back in 5 years or so when you've been replaced by a robot.
Thank you.
Not. Thank you so much. All right, Boeing now is expanding into autonomous aircraft with the acquisition of Aurora Flight Sciences. Aurora's portfolio includes robotic co-pilots, drone cargo, aircraft, and unmanned air taxis. The company is already a longtime partner of Boeing and also has projects with Uber and the Pentagon. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. Coming up, Google unveiled the second generation of its most popular devices. So why the push into an already crowded market? We'll catch up with the company's senior vice president next. This is Bloomberg. On Wednesday, Google rolled out the second generation of its devices, along with an array of brand new gadgets. It is the tech giant's latest push into a competitive consumer hardware market. Among the list of products, 2 new versions of its Pixel smartphone, a new premium laptop, and a cheaper, smaller model of its home speaker. Bloomberg's Mark Bergen spoke with Rick Osterloh, senior vice president at Google, and asked why it's important to keep innovating in this space.
We wanted to make products that were radically helpful for users. A lot of them showcase our technology, things that combine AI and software and hardware and put them together into what we call the ultimate Google experience. And you certainly saw some things that are real important everyday use cases, and you saw some things that might appeal strongly to certain kinds of users. And we wanted to do a broad range of things to show the full range of innovation we could do.
Talk to me about which users and markets you're trying to reach now. Some of these devices, like the home speakers, are still really new. It's mostly people in Silicon Valley and the coast. I mean, are you seeing this take off in places like Middle America?
It is definitely a real early market, but we're very excited by what we announced today, because what we were doing was trying to think about how people would use these in your home. And so Google Home Mini is a great product for small rooms, maybe your bedroom. The original Google Home, perfect for a medium-sized room, kitchen, and then if you have an entertainment area, obviously we wanted to create Google Home Max, which has just really powerful sound. They all have the Google Assistant at the core for an easy user experience, and we felt like that's how users are going to use them, like in different ways in different parts of their house. So that's why we created this whole family.
Yeah. You recently brought on about 2,000 engineers or so, pretty big price tag from HTC, who would design just on the Pixel. Is it just for the Pixel, or are there bigger ambitions there for that team?
Well, these are the people that have been working on the Pixel with us. Super talented group of folks. They've come up with a bunch of industry innovations over the many years, and we've worked with them for a very long time as part of Google. So we're really excited to bring them on board. We're going to have just a big boost in our capability to create new innovative hardware, and we're thrilled to have them. So they're obviously very skilled in the smartphone domain, and that's really critical to us.
A lot of people said this was sort of an echo of Motorola, deal which you're very familiar. You used to run that business there.
Yes.
Is it the same as Motorola again, or something different?
It's very different than Motorola. I mean, I think a couple key things here is, we're acquiring part of the team, and that team is critical to something we're focused on, which is the Pixel phone. We're not acquiring the rest of the operating business. HTC will continue and operate as they are, but we're really focused on that smartphone segment. So it's a little different than Motorola. These folks are all going to be part of the mainstream part of the company too, and that's how we're going to integrate our hardware and software efforts.
Right. You're also, you're not just smartphones. You're focused on. You had a VR announcement today. You had a new camera. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what's the idea behind that? What was the work?
Yeah, it's a real showcase of what we can do and how far we've come with AI and machine learning. Google Clips is a small camera that you can place anywhere. It has a wonderful little clip, and it'll take these moments where you can be in the picture, because you can just set the camera down, and then it'll automatically take photos, and it will discard ones that it thinks aren't any good, things that might be blurry or where the subjects aren't in focus, but it'll capture ones that are unexpected and that you might miss if you were pressing a shutter yourself. And that's all because of the machine learning capabilities we've added to this little device that used to take massive computing power to run. We've miniaturized it and made it so that it runs on a small consumer electronics product. And it's like perfect for parents and pet owners, because we've really trained it to focus on people that you're close to.
And it's just compatible with the Pixel right now, is that right?
At the moment, but the compatibility will expand in the future.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that. This has been a year since you launched the first hardware. Has it changed the Google's relationship with some of its Android partners at all?
I don't think so. I think it's been something that Google's been doing for many years with the Nexus program. Clearly, we're after the cutting edge of innovation and hardware in the smartphone space. So we have to invest in a lot of money in the premium tier and components and in software and hardware and integrate them together. So we have a very focused approach at that premium tier to bring people the best Google experience. And probably more importantly, we've got a wide portfolio that looks at a number of different areas. It's not all focused on smartphone. We introduced today a new Chromebook called the Pixelbook, and of course the speaker family. So there's a lot of efforts we're doing.
Yeah, the speaker, the natural competitor we talk about a lot is Amazon, which just they probably put out a speaker since we've been talking here. But how are you setting your strategy apart? What's the Google hardware and home speakers look different than Amazon?
Well, I think we design these for how we think people are going to use them and how they live. So we have a range of products that has a small device that might fit in a small room. We have a middle-sized device that might fit in a kitchen or something like that. And then we have this very large Google Home Max device that has our latest and greatest technology, really powerful sound, can fill a very large room or an outdoor space. And you know, that's how a lot of people's homes are. Sometimes you might want something that's really powerful. The common theme, of course, is they all run Google Assistant. And we think that's the right way to prosecute our business in the smart speaker space. It's just how users are likely to use them.
Anything that wasn't launched today, you're ready for next year?
We're getting ready for next year, but you know, you'll have to stay tuned for 12 months or so until that time has come.
Google's Senior Vice President Rick Osterloh there with Bloomberg's Mark Bergen. Coming up, Netflix raises prices as it tries to fund its ambitious content strategy. We'll take a look at what this means for the streaming video giant and its 104 million users next. And a feature I want to bring to your attention, our interactive TV function. Check it out at TV Go on the Bloomberg. You can watch us live. If you miss an interview, you can go back to it. You can send our producers a message, play along with the charts we bring you on air. This is for Bloomberg subscribers only. Check it out at TV Go. This is Bloomberg.
I'm Mark Crumpton in New York. You're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's begin with a check of First Word News. The National Rifle Association says the so-called bump stocks device that the Las Vegas gunman used to turn semi-automatic rifles into fully automated weapons should be, quote, subject to additional regulations. The NRA added U.S. officials should review whether the devices comply with federal law. 58 people were killed in the massacre, hundreds more wounded. Meantime, senior congressional Republicans are open to considering legislation banning those devices. The House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi says the massacre gives gun control legislation more urgency.
We must act to, it's really a daily tragedy. Do you know that there are, four is the measure of mass tragedy, and there probably an average of one a day in our country where there's an episode where 4 or more people are killed. It's like 270 some already this year.
Investigators trying to determine a motive behind the Las Vegas massacre are looking into whether gunman Stephen Paddock scoped out bigger music festivals in Las Vegas and Chicago and perhaps Boston's Fenway Park. Authorities say he booked rooms overlooking the Lollapalooza Festival in Chicago in August and the Life is Beautiful show near the Vegas Strip in late September. Democratic members of Congress held a rally outside the Capitol today, the deadline for immigrants living in the country illegally to submit their application to stay in the U.S. under the DACA program. President Trump wants to end the program and has called on Congress to come up with a law to protect them. About 40,000 Dreamers have yet to turn in their paperwork. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. It's just after 5:30 p.m. here in New York, 8:30 Friday morning in Sydney. My colleague Paul Allen has a look at the markets. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Well, New Zealand already trading for about 30 minutes. Currently flat, dead flat, actually off by just a single point. This after US stocks gained for another consecutive day. We saw copper jumping 2.7% in London to close at $6,700 per tonne. West Texas also recovering 1.6% to above $50 a barrel. ASX futures looking pretty positive here as well, up 0.6%. Take a look at the Aussie dollar, though, settling finally below 78 cents. Extending a slide that began with Thursday's rather disappointing August retail sales numbers, now fallen more than 4% since hitting a 2-year high last month. Over in Japan, Nikkei futures modestly higher, and we'll be waiting on Malaysia trade data for August. Growth there expected to ease. I'm Paul Allen in Sydney. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. Netflix is raising its prices once again. Netflix will now be charging $11 a month for its most popular U.S. service plan, a 10% hike. The streaming giant is looking to help pay for its ambitious budget for TV shows and movies. The market is reacting favorably to the news as shares of Netflix have hit a record high since the announcement. Joining me now from LA to discuss, Bloomberg's editor Creighton Harrison. So Creighton, look, it had to happen sometime. What do you make of this move happening now?
Well, I think actually a couple of years ago, Netflix put through a price increase, and it was a little bumpy. The subscriber growth slowed down for a while, and then they saw it kind of come through again, and they're bigger than ever user base wise, and I think they've looked at this and said, well, we can get a little more out of subscribers, especially in some of our more developed markets like the U.S. and the U.K. And the market seems to agree with Netflix because the shares have risen a bunch today, which gives you some sense that people believe they can pass through this price increase and still continue to grow.
So the market seems to agree, but what about subscribers? Are they going to stick around?
Well, history would say yes. Based on the previous price increase they went through a couple of years ago, they rolled it out very gradually and kind of took their time expanding it to all users. But again, the user base has continued to grow. I saw one analyst report today that said even people who shut off the service after that price increase, it looks like they eventually came back. So that's a good sign. It doesn't hurt to announce this right before season 2 of Stranger Things too. So you're going to come in the middle of like a bunch of new shows that they're rolling out over the next month or so, and that's really what keeps people staying with Netflix. Is every few weeks there's another show or at least a new season of a show that's been talked about and kind of keeps the buzz alive.
So remind us, Creighton, how much they are spending on original content and what this price increase will do to the bottom line.
Well, it's funny because people talk about Netflix losing money, and it depends on how you define it. They have been profitable for a number of years, but people look at the free cash flow number. That's really the key to understanding the sort of bear case for Netflix, that they spend all this money on content and they have all these obligations to spend money for years and years and years, not just on programs they're developing themselves, but reruns and movies that are already out there that they acquire to put on the service. That content budget is $6 billion this year. Just about. It's going to be $7 billion next year. It'll probably keep growing, and that's again to keep rolling out those shows so that people stick with the service. Adding another $1 a month to the subscription price helps alleviate that a little bit.
All right, Creighton Harrison, our Bloomberg editor from LA. Creighton, thanks so much for weighing in.
Sure.
Now, Netflix and the topic of content is the main focus for many media companies. This week, Bloomberg's David Weston spoke with FX Network CEO John Landgraf, who's been very vocal about the disruption the cable world is facing via Silicon Valley competitors. Weston asked Landgraf about how his industry should respond.
We have to build our own brand. So we launched something called FX Plus with Comcast a little more than a month ago, and now Cox is joining, and we're talking to other operators. And that will be a subscription service for people who really want the whole brand and they want it commercial free. Currently exists only within the multi-video program distribution marketplace, meaning it's only available at the moment to basic cable subscribers. But I think we can layer on our own subscription business, and I don't think they have to grow to nearly the scale that Netflix or Amazon or Hulu have, because again, we're not trying to be platforms, we're trying to be brands, and I think essentially brands are going to evolve. But I think the best brands, the really good brands, I think still have a very bright future. I would absolutely bet on HBO to be a thriving, successful brand, 20 years from now in the television ecosystem.
So as you look at these platforms, John, is it a matter of reaching the audience, that is to say they may siphon off audience from you, or is it a matter on the cost side? We look at the incredible production budgets we're seeing from Netflix and from Amazon, people like that. That must be giving you fits on the cost side.
Well, the cost of making quality television programming is going up, but I think that's a good thing for consumers. I think an arms race, so to speak, in programming is part of what's fueling this platinum age of television, golden age of television and quality. On the other hand, I think that too much content creates a paradox of choice, creates a difficult system within which to navigate. I'm a subscriber to these platforms. I'm an Amazon Prime subscriber, a Netflix subscriber, a Hulu subscriber, but honestly, I can't always navigate through the sheer volume of those platforms. I need brands. I want HBO. I want AMC. I want Showtime. I want various really good brands to help me navigate towards excellence. So I think that platforms and brands have to learn to coexist. I don't know that I think Silicon Valley would agree with that assessment, but that's my assessment. And ultimately, I'm very bullish, really truly bullish about this transitional period.
So John, finally, how do you build a brand in this new digital world? I mean, it's always been a challenge, but in a day when you had 3 broadcast networks, you could put the program on at 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock and build a brand doing it that way. It's much more complicated now with so much material out there. How do you build a brand? What are the mechanisms you rely upon?
You know, I really rely on, I guess I'd say, a similar mechanism to what an editor of a magazine or a newspaper or perhaps a channel relies on, which is you have to be a curator. You have to stand for something in terms of the editorial quality of what you do. I think we have a unique ability as an organization to seek relationships with business and creative relationships and bring out the very best in creative people. We've shown a track record over 15 years of making, numerous comedies, dramas, limited series that are not just good but great, that are acclaimed as among the best television being made. So we have a unique skill set in terms of being able to find, and most of that, by the way, is with first-time producers or people that you wouldn't think of as brand names who are established people in television. We're not in the business of going out with a massive payroll and buying the A-plus talent. We're in the business of developing that talent and developing their work from the ground up. And when we can take everything we've done for 15 years, back to The Shield, Nip Tuck, Rescue Me, Damages, Louie, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and put that in a context with all the great work we're doing today, American Crime Story, American Horror Story, Fargo, Legion, Atlanta, Baskets, Better Things, and on and on and on. I think that's a very powerful environment within which there's an extraordinary amount of not television of average quality, but television of exceptional quality that's been curated and nurtured over a period of time. I would say someone who's, the editor of one of the best magazines in America is doing something similar. And I can only tell you as a consumer of long-form journalism, I still find those editors and those magazines and those sites to be incredibly valuable to giving me access to really great writing that provides context within the world we live in. And I still rely on HBO and Showtime and many other brands, AMC, to sort of navigate me towards the best in television. I think Netflix can be one of those brands, but I don't think it can be the whole enchilada. I don't believe that in television, Silicon Valley is going to manage to supplant every existing legacy brand, whether they're broadcast networks, cable networks, or premium networks that exist. I don't think they can get all the talent. I don't think they have the breadth of skill set to essentially disintermediate the whole brand ecosystem that exists today.
That was John Landgraf, CEO of FX Networks, there speaking with our very own David Weston. Well, Harvey Weinstein, the movie mogul famous for releasing Oscar winners like The English Patient and Good Will Hunting, has taken a leave of absence from his production company following allegations of sexual harassment raised in a New York Times article. Actress Ashley Judd is among those claiming to have been harassed by the producer. Weinstein, best known as the founder of Miramax, has reached at least 8 settlements with women, the newspaper reported. An attorney advising the producer said in a statement, quote, he denies many of the accusations as patently false. Coming up, shares of Snap under pressure after another bearish analyst call. So what can the company do to innovate and gain users? We pose that question to internet star Gary Vaynerchuk next. This is Bloomberg. Now to a stock we are watching. Shares of Snap are under pressure. The estimates for Snap's next 3 fiscal years were cut at Needham after research showed smaller spending by new advertisers and tough competition from Facebook and Instagram. Analyst Laura Martin added the company doesn't have a clear path to profitability before 2020. Meantime, entrepreneur and internet personality Gary Vaynerchuk sat down with Scarlett Fu as part of Bloomberg's ongoing series at Cornell Tech. They covered Snap and what changes the company needs to make to break through to more users.
They have to innovate in a way that is not a feature. A feature is not the way you innovate, right? Mm-hmm. The cat's out of the bag. Fast following features are now going to be a way that is not going to allow the house parties or the Marco Polos or the next frontier of things to get there. So they're going to have to give it some thought. What's ironic about that is Snap is uniquely, potentially, a company that could do that because Evan, and I don't know him at all, I've never met Evan, and I know a lot of Imran's and a lot of the other characters, but he's an LA kid. He's treated Snapchat like a fashion brand as much as a tech company. He actually could go left field. Like, you know, if I said to you that it was Snap, not Adidas, that did what they've done for the last 2 years to put Nike in a weird spot, it wouldn't seem that far-fetched. I get where you could be like, but it's not as far-fetched that if I said Twitter or, you know, or Facebook or Uber did that, right? And so that's where I'm fascinated what Snap is gonna do or not gonna do. We're about to find out if Evan was a one-trick pony or if he could adjust to the reality of the new marketplace. They've quietly invested very aggressively in AR, you know, when you look at their M&A. So it'll be interesting to see if they can or will do anything there. And then the other question is this, right? Which is, Snap is an incredibly big platform that can build a very big business. It's just that the market put all of the value into that it was going to continue to grow and be 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds. So what's fascinating with Snap is going to be that it's probably overvalued in a Wall Street dynamic, even amongst everything being overvalued. They're going to have to do something. They're going to have to truly innovate.
That was Gary Vaynerchuk, CEO of VaynerMedia, speaking to Scarlett Fu at Bloomberg's Cornell Tech Series. All right, coming up, collegiate sports are headed to China, all thanks to Alibaba. Details behind the partnership between the Chinese tech giant and the Pac-12 next. This is Bloomberg. The college sports conference, the Pac-12, is about to get a lot more airtime in China. Alibaba has acquired the rights to broadcast Pac-12 sports across China through 2024. The deal marks the first time a college sports network will be made available in China. Our Bloomberg editor-at-large, Corey Johnson, sat down with the Pac-12 commissioner, Larry Scott, and asked how big a deal this truly is.
It's a really big deal for us. You know, we're the first conference to really have a comprehensive partnership outside the U.S. They're going to help us distribute a vast amount of content, 175 live events to the Chinese audience, as well as help us continue to have a regular season basketball game in China. So it's a big milestone for us. Is there one sport in particular that's dominant? Obviously, college football and Pac-12 is so huge with such great powerhouses like Stanford, USC, Cal, Oregon, and beyond. Well, the Chinese audience loves prestigious brands. And our Pac-12 universities, some of the ones you mentioned, you know, some of the most well-known education brands. I just threw both Arizona and Washington under the bus. My apologies, but you know. We've got 12 amazing brands. But the interest in U.S. higher ed amongst the Chinese audience is very significant, as well as Olympic sports generally. But I'd say amongst all the sports, basketball has the most interest. The NBA's done very well in China. The Chinese play and love basketball. And one of the interests in the Pac-12 is they know so much about basketball. They want to see where the NBA stars come from. And they're fascinated to see the highest level of amateur athletics and amateur collegiate athletics twinned with higher education. It's kind of a novel concept of the Chinese. And you're going to have a game, as you mentioned, also in China. Yes, we're the only conference that's got a regular season basketball. This is an exhibition game. And I wonder, you know, too, when we look at how this partnership works on a technological basis, that's really interesting to me as well. Yes, so we, you know, in order to make this partnership work, they're going to distribute 175 live events. If we were still relying on satellite delivery and all the costs and logistics involved in that, we probably couldn't do it. But, you know, a digital transmission has really allowed us to keep our costs down when it comes to the international distribution of our content on the one hand. On the other hand, the connectivity we've got with each of our campuses allows us to produce, in a very efficient way, a huge quantity of events. So on the Pac-12 networks here in the U.S., we produce 850 live events per year.
And the quality is good enough that you can take a game from Eugene and edit it in San Francisco and broadcast it in China, and it's the same quality that we would have seen on ESPN 5 years ago?
You would not know the difference.
It's remarkable. It seems to me the other aspect of it isn't just about doing a Pac-12 football game that might get a lot of carriers, a lot of interest, but you could do a women's swimming match at Cal that might not have ever seen TV because your cost of production is so much lower and you've got your own network where you can put the stuff out.
Yes, well, that's really why we created the Pac-12 networks, to be masters of our own destiny, to control. And it's kind of true to our mission. You know, in the past, we'd just license all our rights to ESPN, Fox, or others, and we still license half of our football games and about 70 men's basketball games, and that brings in significant revenue for our schools, significant exposure. But for the other football games, basketball games, and all these Olympic sports that might not have an ROI for an ESPN or Fox, so they won't telecast them, we care. You know, our mission is to promote the broad-based competition across all these sports. We've got 7,000 student athletes across 35 different sports. And these are the best of the best swimmers, track and field, soccer, rowing, and we want to promote these student athletes. We want to make our alumni and fans have access. And so we invest to produce these events and expose them. So on top of football and basketball games on the Pac-12 network, we've got 750 other events that otherwise would not be on TV.
Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott there with our editor-at-large, Cordy Johnson. Joining me now for more from Hong Kong, Bloomberg's Stephen Engel. And Stephen, what do you make of Alibaba's interest in U.S. college sports?
Yeah, it kind of fits into the pattern of what Jack Ma has been trying to do. And also Joe Tsai. Keep in mind, Joe Tsai went to Yale University. He was a lacrosse player there. And in fact, lacrosse, I saw in this press release, is going to be one of those Pac-12 sports that's going to be broadcast in China. Go figure there if there's a lot of audience for lacrosse. But again, it's the basketball, it's football. Jack Ma told me they want to go now that China has become much more of a middle class, an aspirational society. They want to go healthy and happy. And, Jack Ma, they've invested in Evergrande, Guangzhou Evergrande, the soccer team in China. They want to do more streaming of sports. Obviously, the Pac-12 network, given all the West Coast teams, is going to play into that. 27,000 Chinese national students are at Pac-12 schools, and 12,000 Pac-12 alumni live in China.
What's your hunch on how well these games will actually do in China?
Yeah, that's debatable, of course. I mean, the NFL's had a long slog to get viewership, and they've had some streaming, of course, in China. But there are some sports that do not necessarily translate. But you know what? Again, this is a marketing tool as well for the Pac-12 to get the eyeballs of the families in China for not only the sports, but also, of course, the academic futures of their children going to the West Coast schools. So it will take some time to get Pac-12 football, but there's some great names there. UCLA, USC, Washington, even my alma mater, Washington State. Hey, they're 5-0 this year.
When I lived in China, Stephen, and this was 6-8 years ago, the narrative was about this big brain drain, students leaving China to come to the United States. Is that still the trend? Do you think this will, encourage more students to look at studying abroad, or are more students choosing to stay at home and study in China?
I think actually, looking to the United States is still the holy grail for many students, of course, in China. There's a lot of prestige going to universities in the United States. I think that is going to continue, especially with a lot of the children who are of college age. It's still the one-child policy. The families want the best for them, and they, kind of see the United States and the universities there as the best.
All right. Bloomberg's Stephen Engel, our North Asia correspondent. Thank you, Stephen, as always, for joining us this morning from Hong Kong. That does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. All next week, we will be broadcasting live from the GeekWire Summit in Seattle, speaking to Yaxing Zhang, the president of Baidu, Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson, and Andy Jassy, CEO of Amazon Web Services. Do not miss our exclusive interviews all next week, right here on Bloomberg Television. This is Bloomberg.